Hello friends and welcome back to House of Props. Today I will be making this Daemon Targaryen shield. It is a super easy build, so let's get started. I started by using my template to cut two shield pieces out of 10mm foam and glued the two together with contact cement. I glued a line along the center and then continued gluing by bending the rear piece to create the shield curve and bringing the front piece up to meet it. Now would be a great time to subscribe to this channel so you can see all the upcoming future projects. Next, I cut a piece of 2mm foam that is a little larger than the shield and use this to skin the 10mm foam. I glue along the middle with contact cement and work my way from the center out toward the edges. This guarantees that you'll end up with a smooth surface. I didn't have a piece of 10mm foam that was big enough, so I glued floor mats together, which gives you this seam, but by adding the 2mm foam you can see how it hides this connection. I then wrap the excess around the edges of the shield and then trim away the excess with just a pair of scissors. Then another piece of 2mm foam, which has been cut to the exact shield size, can then be glued onto the back. Once in place, I blend the edges with my rotary tool and sanding drum. This will just make sure that all the edges are completely smooth and that there aren't any loose pieces of foam that haven't been glued down. Next, I attach this piece of 6mm foam at an angle on the rear of the shield. This will function as the arm support leather, where the grips will then be added. The arm and hand grips are cut from 4mm foam and glued into place with contact cement. Then I do a quick check to make sure that my arm still fits. You can shorten or extend these templates if you need to. To add the rivet details that hold these leather straps onto the shield, I take my rotary tool with a sanding drum and press the end of the drum straight down onto the foam in order to get these details. At this point, I apply quick seal to any seams in the foam edges to make sure that there are no unwanted gaps. I apply it with a palette knife and then smooth the edges by dipping my finger in water and rubbing the area. The water will keep you from needing to sand later. When the caulk has dried, I heat seal the entire shield with my heat gun. Once the foam has cooled, I then apply Plasti Dip to begin the painting process. I generally apply 2 even coats and let the shield sit overnight to thoroughly cure and dry before I begin painting with acrylics. It was at this point that the first episode aired, and I noticed that during the jousting tournament the shields had this edge along one corner, so I just added it and then sprayed this area with Plasti Dip. These edges are cut from 6mm foam and they are included in the template. Finally, I could begin painting. I started by basing the entire shield with pavement gray. This gray is excellent because when it dries it's darker but not totally black, so you get a variation on the surface than if you'd use like a really dark charcoal gray. The leather pieces on the rear are based with a burnt umber. By using burnt umber, this will allow us to achieve a dark leather finish like something stained with blood and sweat. Once all the base paint has dried, I begin painting the details on the front by using stencils. You can see I use multiple stencils, but you could easily just use one. That way you don't need to worry about alignment. I start by stenciling the filigree with a golden yellow I mixed using raw sienna and yellow. When stenciling, it's best to keep your paintbrush straight up when pouncing the surface. This should keep the brush bristles from slipping under the edges of the stencil. I let the paint become tacky before I remove the stencil. If you let it dry completely, it may rip the stencil or leave pieces of paper stuck in the paint. When you cut out the dragon, make sure to keep these 3 circular pieces because you will need to pin them into the design to get the correct look. The dragon is pounced the same way with a red paint mix from crimson and bright red. I found I needed to paint the dragon 3 times in order to get even coverage. While the red dries, I use the piece of paper I cut off of the stencil to help create the golden lines around the dragon. This will help give me the correct curve, and I can more easily control the thickness of the line. When the red has dried, I apply the golden areas to the dragon by using the same paint as I used for the filigree and the lines. Then the eyes, teeth, and claws are pounced with white. The same golden yellow is used to paint the outer edges. Once the front is completely dry, I flip it over and finish the leather surfaces by making a nutmeg brown wash and brushing this across all the leather areas. And then I dab it with a paper towel. This will give the surface a dimply texture effect like real leather. When the nutmeg brown has dried, I make a very thin black wash and apply this across the leather and along the edges where the leather touches the shield, and dab again with a paper towel. I continue to apply layers of the black wash to build up a variation in the surface color and texture. Then the rivet pins are painted with a sterling silver acrylic. Burnt sienna can be used to give the rivets some aging if you choose to. As the final paint step, I use a very small brush and pavement gray paint to draw in all the details onto the three-headed dragon. I'm using a piece of paper as a support to make sure my hand doesn't damage the bottom layers of paint. And there you have it, a super easy Daemon Targaryen shield you can use for your next cosplay, a LARPing campaign, or to just add to your collection. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to House of Props for more movie and TV related content. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at House of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.